The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the New York Times for Saturday, January 17th, 2026. Your reader is Joe Gibbs. From the national section of the New York Times, former super is convicted of fleeing ailing tenant. A former building superintendent was convicted on Thursday on 2 counts of grand larceny after stealing more than $350,000 from a 98-year-old resident of Manhattan building where she worked. The former super, Rosalind Hernandez, was living in a Chelsea apartment building and working as a superintendent when she befriended the resident Antonio Rouse and gained his confidence. Prosecutors said after time, Mr. Rouse, a retired stone setter from Brazil, who was in poor health, asked her to sell his apartment, tie up his affairs in exchange for $100,000. For Mrs. Hernandez, this generous gift was not enough. In her greed, she stole an additional $350,000 to spend on personal items, Elvin L. Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney, said in a statement. Ms. Hernandez gained access to Mr. Rouse's bank accounts and credit cards and wrote large checks to people he did not know, prosecutors said. She used his cards to pay for lingerie, a haircut, a subscription to an entrepreneurship training program for herself and her niece, among other personal expenses. She also linked his card to a Lyft account and made over 900 hours worth of trips, according to prosecutors. Ms. Hernandez, who's 57, took advantage of Mr. Rouse's age and the fact that English was not in his first language. Mr. Bragg said she faces a maximum sentence of 15 years. Ms. Hernandez was fired by the co-op board in late 23 over concerns of her job performance and later moved out of the building. The New York Times reported in 2024 her lawyer, Michael Hurwitz, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Mr. Rouse is now 101, testified in court in the case. In 2023, the pair were featured by Times and a series of building superintendents. According to the article, Mr. Rouse was in the hospital at the time, recovering from a broken pelvis after falling while crossing the street. When he fell, paramedics called Ms. Hernandez because her phone number was written on a piece of paper in his wallet, and she came running. The article called Ms. Hernandez an unofficial companion and caregiver to the retirees, widows, and widowers who lived then half of the 53 units in the pre-war building, steps away from Google's headquarters in Chelsea's Market. If it weren't for her, I'd be in the gutter, Mr. Rouse, who was 98 at the time. As they built a friendship, Ms. Hernandez persuaded Mr. Rouse to give her power of attorney to help him with affairs, prosecutors said. In 23, Ms. Hernandez accompanied Mr. Rouse on a trip to visit his family, prosecutors said. She returned to New York City with his checkbook, bank card, and credit cards, they said. While Mr. Rouse was away, she wrote checks to 2 people he didn't know, totaling more than $450,000, and purchased other personal items. It was not until Mr. Rouse returned that December that he saw most of his furniture was gone. He was no longer receiving mail, and Mr. Hernandez stopped paying maintenance fees on his apartment. When he spoke to his banker, Mr. Rouse realized that half his life savings was gone. In late 2024, Mr. Hernandez was charged with larceny. Drunken driver who killed 4 at cookout gets decades in prison. A man who was drunk when he crashed his pickup truck into a 4th of July barbecue in Lower Manhattan in 24, killing 4 people, was sentenced to 24 years to life in prison on Friday. The man, Daniel Hayden, who was a self-described wellness advocate and substance abuse counselor, had been kicked out of a bar before he lost control of his Ford 150 pickup truck, rammed right through a fence at Curler's Hook Park on the lower side of Manhattan and crushed the victims. In the days after, 4 people died. Lucille Pinckney, 59, her son Herman Pinckney, 38, Emily Ruiz, 30 years old, and Anna Morell, 43. 7 others were injured in the crash. On Friday, the families of those who were killed and people who were injured read victim impact statements in court and spoke of the physical and emotional pain that has permeated their lives. Starkemia Lewis, Miss Pinckney's niece, and Mr. Pinckney's cousin, said Hayden's reckless and self-actions turned what should have been a celebration into tragedy. She added that Mr. Hayden was aware of the risks associated with actions as a substance abuse counselor who had written about his history with addiction and had past citations for driving under the influence. Daniel made the conscious choice to drink and drive, fully aware of the risks, Ms. Lewis said in court. Fully aware of the devastation it could cause. Mr. Hayden was convicted in November after a 2-week non-jury trial. Justice April A. Neubauer found him guilty on 12 counts, including second-degree murder and aggravated assault. Alvin L. Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney, said in a statement on Friday that while this prison sentence will not reverse the fatalities, injuries, and trauma, I hope the sentencing brings a measure of comfort for those who were impacted by the mass casualty event. There is illustrations of them in court reading their statements and of him with his hands behind his back and handcuffs. In his own statements, Mr. Hayden apologized to the families, the victims, and everyone who had to process the carnage of the crash, where he referred to as an accident. I'm processing how deeply disturbed and deeply hurt I was and still am, he told the courtroom. I am still processing the amount of people I hurt with my actions. In August of that year, he said he was scheduled to read his own victim impact statement at the sentencing of a man who killed his sister in a hit-and-run crash in New Jersey in 21. Instead, he was at Rikers Island complex being charged in his own case. What kind of human being would put other human beings through the same thing he was going through, he said in court. The barbecue picnic in the crowded park had featured hours of music and dancing. During the trial, Liliana Ruiz, the mother of Emily Ruiz, recalled that she had just left to run Starkia Lewis, center left in the illustration, relative of the victim, reading the impact statement. Matthew Bogdan was right at Friday, and Daniel Hayden, below, a substance counselor, lost control of his truck. The victims, in a small illustration, said it were run over in a Lower East Side park of 4th of July. Mrs. Ruiz said she spotted her grandson standing alone. And as she looked around in a panic, she saw a pickup truck on the bleachers where her group had been sitting. She ran toward the truck. She said she saw her daughter pinned underneath. On Friday, Mr. Ruiz said that she had difficulty distilling how she has felt since the moment, the 2 or 3 minute statements in court. She said she struggled to write about the gut-wrenching feeling of when she had to look into my daughter's eyes as she laid under the truck gasping for air that would never arrive to her lungs. For years, leaders in New York City have tried to curtail traffic deaths. An innovative called Vision Zero was launched in 2014 by former Mayor Bill de Blasio to reduce fatalities to nothing. In 2024, the year of Lower East Side crash, the city recorded 251 fatalities, 51,555 injuries, a decline of about only 8% from the year before. In 2025, fatalities fell to 206, injuries of 47,183, according to city data. Continuing with the New York Times, here's some fun facts of interest. Credit card debt in the United States exceeds $1.21 trillion. Yes, that's trillion. And about 37% of Americans, adults, carry a credit card balance, according to the data from the Federal Reserve. Since the 1980s, the Nobel medal has been made with 18-karat recycled gold, and it has fetched a wide range of prices. In 2014, for example, the scientist James Watson sold his medal for over $4 million. Gretchen Fraser became the first American to win an Olympic gold medal in alpine skiing in 1948 in St. Moritz, Switzerland. National Nurses United, the largest union of registered nurses in the country, released a report in 2024 that found 8 in 10 nurses had experienced at least one type of workplace violence within the previous year. That is a lot. The National Endowment for Humanities has announced $71 million in new grants awarded to 84 projects across the country. Only one grant goes to an Ivy League school, $60,000 to a scholarship at Dartmouth for study of medieval relics. Colombia has 269,000 active military personnel, second only to Brazil in South America. But analysts say much of its equipment is aging and costly to maintain. Here's a section called Might We Suggest? 4 weekend recommendations from around the newsroom. Organizing your workspace. Bringing some semblance of order to your desk can open up your productivity and creativity. T Magazine spoke to several experts about how they keep their services both inviting and inspiring. Position your desk near a window. Establish a ritual, like keeping tea or candle nearby. And seek out accessories that can double as decor. That was from tmagazine.com. Noshing on 17 different bagels. That's how many have made the Times updated list of the best bagels in New York City. After one reporter ate more than 70 bagels from 39 shops, among the proprietors that made the cut in New Absolute Bagels, a beloved staple in the Upper West Side of Manhattan that has come back stronger than ever after its 2024 closure. Explore the other picks on the list at newyorktimes.com/food. Getting your rivals to lovers fix. So you watched all the way through Heated Rivalry twice. You finished the Rachel Reed's hockey romance novel of the same name and sequel. While you wait for Season 2 and Reed's next installment in Shane and Lila's love story, try another odds-defying sports romance like Cat Sebastian's You Should Be So Lucky, or another tale of slow-burning tension like Emily Henry's Book Lovers. Find more recommendations at newyorktimes.com/books. And the fourth recommendation is practicing the acceptance speech. Gaze slowly into the mirror and repeat after us. I'd like to thank the Academy. There's an art to making a heartfelt award show speech and a fine line to walk between the scripted and the spontaneous. Kyle Buchanan. The Times Awards season columnists assembled a handy guide to keeping things short, sweet, should be summoned to the stage one day. Hey, you never know. Among other insights, keep the litany of names to meaningful minimum. And know when it's time to wind things down before the orchestra plays you off, start rehearsing your moment in the spotlight. That is at newyorktimes.com/movies. A headline from history. 21 on a lost plane, Miss Lombard won. This is from January 17th, 1942. A TWA airliner carrying 18 passengers and 3 crew members were feared to have crashed and burned 30 miles southwest of Las Vegas. The Times reported among the passengers was actress Carole Lombard, married to Clark Gable. Miss Lombard, who was 32, had starred opposite of William Powell in My Man Godfrey, John Barrymore in the 20th Century, and Gary Cooper in Now and Forever. Miss Lombard, her mother, and an MGM publicist were returning from Indianapolis, where they participated in a defense savings bond rally, selling more than $2 million worth of war effort in the actress's home state. President Franklin D. Roosevelt posthumously awarded Miss Lombard the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In a cable to Mr. Gable after her death, wrote, "She and always will be a star, one we shall never forget nor cease to be grateful to." The Digest. New York Times, still Saturday, January 17th. WestJet will drop non-reclinable seats. WestJet Airlines said on Friday that it would scrap non-reclinable economy seating on certain Boeing 737 jets after a slew of complaints and videos on social media showing travelers' knees pressed up against a seat ahead of them. The Canadian carrier said in a statement it will return to prior standard economy seat configuration after reviewing operational data and feedback from travelers. WestJet's rollout last year of the reconfigured seats on the planes to make room for more spacious premium seating up front was widely viewed as a test of its limits of add-on culture. Adjustable economy seats are still available, but passengers must pay extra. While Onyx Corp-backed WestJet paused the rollout of the new configuration last month, the videos of the passengers with cramped legs hit social media sites in January. The space between the row of the seats or pitch was reduced to 28 inches to allow for an extra row of seating. That was from Reuters. Tesla allowed more time to respond to inquiry. U.S. regulators have granted a 5-week extension for Tesla to respond to allegation that its vehicles have broken traffic laws while operating in what electric automaker calls full self-driving mode. An investigation of Tesla's full self-driving feature was opened in October after the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration said that it had collected dozens of reports of cars running red lights or driving on the wrong side of the road, sometimes crashing into other vehicles and causing injuries. The investigation covered 2.9 million vehicles, essentially all Teslas equipped with full self-driving technology, or FSD. Critics say the name is a misnomer that has lulled drivers into handing full control over to their cars. The federal agency responsible for auto safety said in a letter to Tesla on December 3rd of 25 that it was investigating 62 complaints, up from 58 reported in October. That was from the Associated Press. ClickHouse is riding the wave of AI, is valued at $15 billion. ClickHouse, a database management company, was valued at $15 billion in its latest funding round, its chief executive Aaron Katz said on Friday. As investor enthusiasm for companies related to the artificial intelligence boom spills over into the next year, the firm raised $400 million in a Series D round led by Dragoneer Investment Group, with participation from Bessemer Venture Partners, GIC, and Index Ventures, among others. In the race of deploy AI tools, companies covet real-time analytics software providers such as ClickHouse that help manage soaring data volumes and performance needs. As companies bolt AI features into everything, they need fast, cheap, real-time analytics for product, telemetry, observability, security, data warehousing, and cloud form, said Michael Ashley Schulman, partner at Running Point Capital Advisors. That was from Reuters. From the arts of the New York Times, a loss, but the music plays on. A tribute to the Grateful Dead, Bob Weir showed the durability of the band's culture. If Grateful Dead fans are good at saying goodbye, it is thanks to decades of practice. They said goodbye in 1995 when Jerry Garcia died at 53. They said goodbye again 20 years later in a series of shows that were the last to feature the band's 4 remaining core members, Mickey Hart, Bill Kreutzmann, Phil Lesh, and Bob Weir. They said goodbye to an incarnation of the group called Dead and Company when it made a final tour in 2023, and then again last year when it played 3 standalone shows in honor of the 60th anniversary of the Dead founding. In 2024, they said goodbye to bassist Lesh and his own long-tenured successor act, Phil Lesh and friends, when he died at 84. Weir's death last Saturday at 78 was the latest occasion of a farewell. The voices are gone, Dennis McNally, the Dead's former spokesman and biographer, said this week, referring to the band member who after Garcia wrote and sang the most songs. But a counterpoint to the mourning came on Tuesday at Brooklyn Bowl, where hundreds gathered for a free tribute concert. Bob Weir is here, Sarah Elaz, the bassist for the evening cover band Bushwick's Dead, announced that as the group took the stage and started up Weir's most famous song, the one the Grateful Dead used to play at midnight every New Year's Eve, Sugar Magnolia. There's actually a picture, an illustration. It says concert goers were handed roses at the point during the long tribute to Bob Weir at Brooklyn Bowl. And that shows the tribute band. On the next page, there is many more pictures and illustrations. It also says another loss, but the music plays on. There must be 6, 7 pictures of everybody dancing, having a good time, the tribute band singing. There's a little paragraph here that says, I wouldn't say they worshipped him. He was more like a friend. Ashley Duncan on Friends' feelings for Bob Weir. Another said, from left dancing to the flow of the music, the evening was celebratory, not funeral. Bushwick's Dead, a local tribute act playing the Brooklyn Bowl. That was another illustration. Continuing the paragraph and the story, the statement about Weir pointed to a remarkable aspect of the Dead. As the core members fade away, just how Kreutzmann are still alive among them. The phenomenon continues. Like perhaps no other act, the Dead have evolved into an idea and a songbook. This would have seemed implausible 30 years ago when Garcia, the band's musical soul and culture icon, died. But in the ensuing decades, a ream of archived recordings, official side projects, touring cover bands, local tribute acts, and an infusion of new young fans have meant that the music, to borrow from a Dead song, never stopped. My parents would talk about the Grateful Dead, rolled as an old oak tree. Graham Lesh, son of Phil, said in an interview this week, the roots are the American music that the band drew from and synthesized into the Grateful Dead's music. The band members themselves were the trunk of the tree, and all of us continuing it on. That played with them later, the cover bands in every city, they were the branches and the leaves. Very nice. Nobody was as committed to this concept as Weir, who was just 17 when he and 4 other musicians formed the Dead in the Bay area in 1965. Weir was a part of numerous successor acts featuring the original band members, and Garcia's death ended the original incarnation. 11 years ago, Weir co-founded Dead & Company, which featured Hart and sometimes Kreutzmann, but also new musicians, not notably John Mayer. In the Garcia role, Dead & Company archived immense popularity in its own right, introducing a new generation to the group's music, lore, and culture. For many in the young schooling crowd at Brooklyn Bowl, the wake for Weir on Tuesday was as much about memorizing Dead & Company as the original band. He is my son. He is my Jerry, Sarah Dennis, 32, said of Weir before the concert began. Had he not had the open-mindedness and foresight to bring in someone like John, it might not have gotten to people my age. Ashley Duncan, 30, who had to come to Brooklyn Bowl as a +1, said that her boyfriend cried when he learned of Weir's death. I wouldn't say they worshipped him, she said. Of her deadhead friends, he was more like a friend. The evening was celebratory and not a funeral. The reggae artist Maishu sang an estimated prophet, an intricate song set to 7/4 time. The soul-inflected guitarist Robert Randolph played on Samson and Delilah After Truckin' with its famous tagline, "What a long, strange trip it's been," closed the second set at the Brooklyn Bowl. Impresso Peter Shapiro and others from the venue distributed roses to the audience, which were held for a moment of silence and then tossed in the air. Despite the latest loss, 2026 is on track to be another year of continuing life of the Dead. Official releases of archival shows continue space, with 2 announced for the coming months. Dozens, if not hundreds, of cover bands dot the landscape. Phil Lesh and Friends is gone. Graham Lesh and Friends has several gigs on the books. Chris Ferretti, 54, and a deadhead straight from Central Casting, the former owner of a brown and beige Volkswagen bus, a Tuesday night dressed as psychedelic Uncle Sam in a nod to the Dead song U.S. Blues. Would not count on the Brooklyn Bowl tribute concert among the 504 shows he's attended by the Dead and official successors, but he was pleased to be there and surrounded by people half his age. He went to 504 shows. That's the thing about the Dead, Freddie said. You're never the oldest, but you're never the youngest. On to some travel. Here's an article. Winter Olympic sports without a trip to Milan. There is a illustration of somebody skiing in Sun Valley, Idaho. And it says it's one of the several U.S. resorts with an Olympic legacy and related event. For winter sports fans, attending the Winter Olympics is a dream. But getting to this year's games, which are split between Milan and Cortina, Italy, beginning February 6th, is a pricey proposition with sky-high hotel rates and limited availability. More than 1 million tickets have been sold to the events that include alpine and Nordic skiing, as well as snowboarding, figure skating, hockey, bobsled, curling, and more. If you're not going to make it to Europe, like most of us, you can have an Olympic experience closer to home, watching high-level competitions, some serving as warm-ups for the Olympic events, and even taking part in sports like ski jumping and skeleton at sites across North America. Some of the venues have posted previous games or will host them in the future. Here are 5 places where you can channel the Olympic spirit this winter without crossing the ocean. Lake Placid, New York. Both the 1932 and 1980 Olympics were held in the Adirondacks, and today the 4 Lake Placid legacy sites offer tourists a chance to watch and even take part in Olympic activities. At the Herb Brooks Arena, where during the 1980 Games, the Miracle on Ice U.S. men's hockey team upset the Soviet Union, visitors can watch collegiate championships, national and international figure skating competitions, or local teams as well, and participate in skating or stick puck sessions. The Speed Skating Oval, where Eric Heiden nabbed 5 gold medals, is an active training facility and open to the public for skating and lessons. Over at the Jumping Complex, you can get a feel for what athletes experience by taking a gondola ride to the base of the skiing jump towers and then riding the elevator to the top. At Whiteface Mountain, you can ski or snowboard or on terrain where Olympic athletes have competed, including the steep Niagara Run used for the men's downhill event. The Mount Van Hoevenberg Sports Complex lets you learn about sports like biathlon and bobsled, and even try skeleton, the event where athletes race lying down on a small sled. No thank you. For the entire month of February, there will be Olympic celebrations and activations throughout Lake Placid, including public skating events, Olympian meet and greets involving the local athletes Andrew Weibrecht, Paul Wiley, and Mike Irizoni, and community viewing parties. Another place on the list was Sun Valley, Idaho. And there is yet another illustration of somebody skiing down a beautiful mountain with all kinds of trees, mountains in the background. Very nice picture. Sun Valley also has a robust Olympic legacy, with 56 former and current Olympians hailing from the region. The ski resort's tradition of naming runs on Bald Mountain after hometown alpine medalist started with Gretchen's Gold, named for Gretchen Fraser. She was the first American to win an alpine skiing gold medal in 1948 in St. Moritz, Switzerland, and extends to Caitlin's Bowl named for snowboarder Caitlin Farrington. She won a gold medal in halfpipe in Sochi, Russia in 2014. The mountain regularly hosts U.S. Alpine National Championships and has hosted World Cup races. The Wood River Valley Nordic Trails serve as Olympic training grounds, and this spring, the U.S. Paralympics will hold a training camp at Sun Valley Resort. Through the outdoor skating rink behind the historic Sun Valley Lodge, opened in 1936. It did not become a magnet for Olympians until it expanded to its current near Olympic size in 1955. Tenley Albright was the first Olympic gold medalist to perform in a skating carnival there in 1956. Since then, the rink has hosted Peter Kennedy, Peggy Fleming, Dorothy Hamill, Nathan Chen, and Brian Boitano, as well as legions of world-class champions. Anyone can rent skates or take a lesson. Since bold-faced names love to practice at the rink, you may end up doing figure eights alongside a champion. How cool that would be. Now, Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Again, a nice wintry scene. Looks like there's actually looks like some toboggan type of runs, probably like some ski jumps is what they are. A bunch of beautiful Christmas-looking trees and a snowy outlook. A very nice picture and people enjoying themselves. Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Steamboat was sent a whopping 100 athletes to the Winter Olympics. 13 competed in the 2022 games in Beijing, and at least 4 and perhaps more are headed to Cortina. While visitors often come to the ski at the bigger, fancier Steamboat ski resort, local Olympians train on Howelson Hill, Colorado's oldest continuously operated public ski area, which sits across the Yampa River from downtown. Howelson has more Nordic ski jumps than any other complex in North America, ranging from an 8-meter beginner jump to a 127-meter. That is exactly what their picture is showing. It shows all of their jumps. There's numerous choices with height differences and skill levels. The site also has alpine terrain, miles of cross-country trails, a terrain park, and moguls course. Visitors with adventurous children, ages 7 to 13, can sign them up for Winter Steamboat Cup Race Series to sample everything from Nordic jumping to free ride skating. Free with a Howelson Hill lift ticket. Events are on Wednesday and Thursday evenings with a rotating schedule. Adults can downhill or cross-country ski while observing future phenomena and train or pop into historic lodge to listen to Olympic audio tour. Before the games begin, there will be an Olympic celebration with past Olympic athletes and current Olympians heading to Cortina. There will be cauldron lighting ceremony on January 31st in Steamboat Square, as well as a multi-day winter carnival with athlete meet and greets and on-the-slope show with disciplines featured at the games. Once the Olympics begin, there will be a watch party around the resort hosted by athletes. New at the resort this year are experiences that let you ski, ride, or dine with Olympians, with local athletes like Ann Batelli, Aaron Nemec, Mick Deerdorf, Nelson Carmichael, and Johnny Spillane taking part. Ski with an Olympian is $2,500 for 1 to 5 people for 7 hours. Dine with an Olympian is $77 for adults and $51 for children, including tax and tip. My next illustration here is someone playing the game curling. This is from Salt Lake City. This is where you slide the curling rock, and everyone wants to get closest to the middle for the best score. There is a gentleman showing how that is done on this illustration as he's about to slide and release the rock. This is for Salt Lake City. The 2002 Salt Lake City Games saw snowboarding go mainstream. Apollo Ono speed skate his way to gold, and a figure skating judging scandal that ended with gold medals being awarded to the Canadians Jamie Sale and David Pelletier, as well as the Russians Elena Berezina and Anton Surdowitz. The 3 world-class facilities in and around Salt Lake City, which will host the Olympics again in 2034, very interesting, are actively training the next generation of athletes and are open to the public. At Utah Olympic Park in Park City, there are 2 museums, and visitors can book a session on the bobsled steered by a pilot, no thank you, or the skeleton, both of which take place in the Winter Games sliding track. In Kearns, 25 miles southwest, is the Utah Olympic Oval, where the public can glide over a 400-meter track and take figure skating and curling lessons. At Soldier Hollow Nordic Center, about 20 minutes from south of Park City, you can take a biathlon lesson. This involves cross-country skiing and shooting. You go cross-country skiing or tube on a 1,200-foot sliding lanes. Not an Olympic sport, but hey, it could be fun. At Deer Valley Resort, where the freestyle moguls, aerials, and alpine racing events took place, it's a rush to shoot the same terrain as Olympians. The resort's Ski with a Champion experience adds to the Olympic connection. Guests are paired with one of 7 participating Olympics or Paralympians who share tips, tricks, and inside stories. A full-day session starts at $2,700. Half-day starts at $1,545. Up to 6 people can take part in each. And looking at my final destination, which is Whistler, British Columbia, there is a beautiful picture of mountains in the background, 4 people cross-country skiing in a nice wintry setting, all kinds of Christmas trees in the background. And this is for Whistler, British Columbia. In 2010, the Vancouver Olympic Winter Games made history when Whistler Olympic Park combined all 3 traditional Nordic sport stadiums, cross-country, ski jumping, and biathlon, into a single site. These days, visitors can cross-country ski and snowshoe along 34 miles of groomed trails, take biathlon lessons, and even toboggan beneath the ski jumps. A popular activity is night cross-country skiing along its lit trails. This season, there's a new illuminated installation along the Neverland Starlight Loop, featuring light projections and color displays. There is also a new beginner-friendly bobsled lesson that lets guests ride the first 13 turns of the Olympic track at speeds of 71 miles per hour. I don't think so. 30 minutes north at Whistler Blackcomb, the ski resort has introduced a gold medal route, one of 7 guided tours of the mountain called Wonder Routes. That lets participants trace the legacy of the Vancouver Games by skiing the men's Olympic downhill and Super G slope to Timing Flats, where there are signs listing all the gold medalists from the 2010 Games. The resort also has a ski or ride with an Olympian program. Participating athletes include Ashley McIver, a gold medalist for ski cross in 2010, Christy Richards, who had medals in 2006 and 2010, Mike Janik, 2006, 2010, and 2014, among others. A full day at $1,549 Canadian dollars, or about $1,123 for up to 4 people. A full day with gold medalists is $2,899 Canadian dollars, also for up to 4 people. All right. Moving on to cooking. What to make next week? There's all kinds of different illustrations here. NYT Cooking has thousands of recipes and plenty of advice and inspiration. Here we'll share a few easy meals and a dessert or drink, each to make dinner time delicious. For more, visit nytcooking.com. Here's a dish, and there is an illustration. It's warm rice salad with salmon and arugula. Looks like a good dish. A well-composed salad is among my favorite foods, but not what I crave when it's cold out. As much as I love greens, right now I need something that feels like slipping on a puffy jacket. Not too heavy, but deeply warming. That's the brilliance of this dish from Ashley Lonsdale, in which salmon steams over rice as it cooks and then is folded into the pot with arugula. The peppery leaves bow to the warm grains, rippling them green along the dill, and everything ends up savory with Dijon and slicked with a lemon caper dressing. It says by Ashley Lonsdale that the time is 30 minutes, and this is up to 4 servings. You will need for this dish 1.5 cups of white jasmine rice, a 1/4 cup extra virgin olive oil divided, kosher salt such as Diamond Crystal and freshly ground pepper, 1 3/4 pound salmon fillet, skin removed, 2 tablespoons Dijon mustard divided, a 1/4 cup chopped dill, 3 tablespoons fresh lemon juice, 2 tablespoons capers chopped, 1 small shallot minced, and 5 ounces of baby arugula. What are we doing with these ingredients? 1, you are going to rinse the rice until the water runs clear. In a wide-lidded pot or Dutch oven, bring the rice 2.5 cups of water and 2 tablespoons of olive oil to a boil. Season with 1 tablespoon of salt. Cover and simmer for 5 minutes over medium-low. Your second step. Brush salmon with 1 tablespoon of mustard and season with salt and pepper on all sides. Your third step is to gently lay the salmon on top of the rice. Cover and simmer on low heat for an additional 10 minutes until all liquid is absorbed and the salmon is just cooked through. Remove from heat and allow to steam for an additional 5 minutes without lifting the cover. Your fourth step, while the salmon and rice cook, make the dressing. In a small bowl, whisk together the remaining 1 tablespoon of mustard with the dill, lemon juice, capers, and shallot. Steam in the remaining 2 tablespoons of olive oil while continuously whisking. Taste, of course, you have to taste, and adjust seasoning with any of the dressing elements if needed. Your fifth and final step, fluff the rice with a fork, break the salmon up into bite-sized pieces, and drizzle in the dressing, and gently fold in the arugula, which will wilt slightly from the heat. A final taste and seasoning adjustment, if needed, completes the meal. Serve warm or at room temperature. That is very good. There is another dish here, and I am looking at a nice dish, seared orange chicken and broccoli. It's citrus season, and this quick chicken dish from Ali Slagle makes the most of tangerines, clementines, or any other small orange adjacent fruit. Ali squeezes the sweet juice into a sesame ginger sauce, savory with soy and tart with vinegar, and tosses into spent halves. Thinner and orange rinds, which can be bitter, these delicate shells impart a floral aroma to the seared chicken and stir-fried broccoli tossed in sauce. You will need 35 minutes, and again, this will serve 4 people. Going through your list, you need 3 to 5 tangerines or clementines halved, 1/4 cup low-sodium soy sauce, 1/4 cup distilled white vinegar, 2 tablespoons toasted sesame oil, 1-inch piece of fresh ginger finely chopped, 1 serrano or jalapeno halved, seeds removed if desired, thinly sliced, a 1/4 cup avocado or another neutral oil divided plus more as needed, 1.5 to 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breasts or thighs, patted dry, pounded to 1/2 inch thick, salt, 1 pound broccoli, 1 large head, cut into florets, cilantro, and toasted sesame seeds for serving. What are we doing with these ingredients? Number 1, we are going to squeeze 1/3 cup of juice from the tangerines into a large, wide-rimmed dish, like a 9x13 dish will do, or shallow bowl. Add the squeezed fruit peels, soy sauce, vinegar, sesame oil, ginger, and serrano. Your second step, in a large skillet, heat 2 tablespoons of avocado oil over medium-high. Season the chicken with salt, then add to the skillet and cook until golden brown underneath, about 5 minutes. Flip and cook until cooked through. 2 to 5 minutes, transfer to the sauce and turn to coat. Your third step, wipe out the skillet to remove any crust bits that may burn. Add the remaining 2 tablespoons avocado oil to the skillet. Still over medium to high, add the broccoli, season with salt, and cook until browned underneath, like 3 to 5 minutes. If at any point the skillet looks dry and the broccoli is burning, add some more oil. Stir and cook until bright green, another 3 to 5 minutes. Err on the crisp side of the crisp tender because the broccoli will soften in the sauce. Transfer broccoli to the sauce and stir to coat. Your fourth and final on this dish, thinly slice the chicken, then serve with broccoli topped with cilantro, sesame seeds, and plenty of sauce. Feel free to discard or leave the squeezed citrus to continue to perfume the sauce. It is not especially enjoyable to eat, however. That is another good dish on the cooking session of the New York Times today. A look at the weather report from the New York Times. National forecast. As the latest Clipper storm travels from the Great Lakes to the northern tier of the Northeast today, areas of snow and flurries will stretch from Minnesota and Iowa to the Appalachians and interior New England. A mixture of rain and snow will fall along the New England and upper parts of the mid-Atlantic coast, with rain farther to the south. Some roads will be snow-covered and slippery from the Midwest to the interior Northeast. As cooler air sweeps in over Midland, icy patches will form on some roads. Gusty winds in the Midwest will add to the harshness of the cold. The colder air moves in over the southeast. A storm will along the front and cause rain to change to snow later and into Sunday from southern Georgia to eastern North Carolina. Mostly snow is forecast to fall further north in the coastal Northeast, of course. Farther west, gusty winds will accompany the cold air over the central and northern part of the plains as Texas turns substantially cooler. Most areas west of the Rockies to the Pacific coast have sunny day in store with warm afternoons for the middle of January. There will be patches of fog in some of the valleys. Light winds may lead to air quality issues. The focus, snow for the Great Lakes. The combination of weak storm moving east from the Midwest and cold air crossing into Great Lakes will be responsible for snow across Wisconsin and Michigan later in the weekend. A coastal storm may bring a period of snow Sunday to eastern New England. And of course, being in Buffalo and western New York, we will see this until March or April. Some sports from the New York Times. The Mets are poised to sign Bichette. The New York Mets have reached an agreement with Bo Bichette on a 3-year deal worth $126 million, according to people with knowledge of the negotiations. The move on Friday came roughly 12 hours after the Mets missed out on Kyle Tucker, who signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Bichette's deal, which contains opt-out clauses after the first 2 seasons and does not include deferrals, is pending a physical. Bichette is a 2-time All-Star at shortstop, is expected to play third base for the Mets. Brett Baty, who spent most of his time with the Mets at third base, could see more action in left field moving forward. The Mets had not been publicly linked to Bichette, but their interest in Tucker was widely known. Bichette did not become a serious fit for the Mets until earlier this month. People familiar with their thinking said when they started to meet with him. The Philadelphia Phillies had also contended for Bichette, meeting with him this week. Bichette is only 27 years old, is one of the best pure contact hitters in baseball. He hit over 290 in 6 of his first 7 big league sessions with the Toronto Blue Jays, leading the American League in hits twice. He still finished near the leaders in hits in 2025 despite missing the final month of the regular season. He returned to action for the World Series and hit 3 home runs in Game 7 through the Blue Jays' ultimate loss to the Dodgers. Saturday, divisional round picks. So everyone knows the NFL playoffs are in the midst, and now we have the divisional rounds. There will be 2 games today and a couple games tomorrow. And here is the New York Times divisional round picks. Our Buffalo Bills are at the Denver Broncos. The Buffalo Bills are actually favored by 1 going into Denver. Many are surprised by that choice. The game will be on CBS at 4:30. I'm sure everyone will be paying attention to the outcome and if Josh Allen can get us to the promised land. The article says, I went back and forth on this one. The Bills destroyed the Broncos a year ago in the playoffs, but that did not move us in either direction. Josh Allen is a little banged up, but he was surgical in ousting the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. This should be a much tougher challenge. The Broncos are 3rd in the NFL in pressure rate and 3rd in sack rate without blitzing. And Allen had a tough time this season against that type of defense. However, the Broncos defense has been slumping for a while, and this is a bad matchup given that Allen likes to throw to his tight ends and running backs. The Broncos led the NFL in third down defense through their Week 12 bye, but ranked 22nd over their final 6 games. They ranked 15th in yards per attempt allowed on targets to running backs and tight ends during the regular season. We have no idea what to expect from Broncos quarterback Bo Nix, but we are fairly certain Denver will try to take advantage of the Bills' poor run defense. But the pick is our Buffalo Bills. The other game is at 8 p.m. on Fox, and it's the 49ers, our San Francisco 49ers, and the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks are 7.5-point favorites and should be. In many ways, the 49ers are the perfect opponent for the Seahawks. Seattle's defense was too physical for the Niners' offense 2 weeks ago, and left tackle Trent Williamson is back. Tight end George Kittle is out, and that will be a huge loss for the 49ers. And the Niners averaged 3.4 yards rushing without him as opposed to 4.1 with him. The wild card is Seahawks quarterback Sam Darnold, and that was before he got hurt this week in practice. Darnold led the NFL with 20 turnovers, 14 interceptions, and 6 fumbles lost. The first time in 47 years that a player on a number 1 seeded team has done so. But he has also had a drop-off over the second half of the season. But the 49ers defense is shorthanded again, and the Seahawks run the ball for 180 yards against the 49ers 2 weeks ago, which sets them up nicely. Darnold ranked 2nd NFL in yards per attempt when using play action, while the 49ers rank 29th in expect points added per dropbox against play action since Week 15. This could fall into the Seahawks' hands. The pick is the Seahawks at home. In the final sports section, there is illustrations and pictures of Carlos Alcaraz defeating Jannik Sinner for the U.S. Open title in 25. The Australian Open is a major title for Swiatek, who also has won 6 since 2020. This is for the tennis Australian Open. There's also a picture of Madison Keys, who leads a strong contingent from the United States as she seeks to defend her Australian Open in Melbourne. Will a career Grand Slam be realized? Will the women's draw reward consistency or clutch performance? Will unseeded players and up-and-comers have a bigger say than usual? And will politics take over the tournament? The 2026 Australian Open, whose first round begins on Saturday, should deliver dramatic moments, big personalities, and, of course, strong tennis. Here we chart some of the key stories to follow over the course of the tournament. In pursuit of the Grand Slam, how will Carlos Alcaraz and Iga Swiatek go? Can the top women players harness each other's strengths? How will American stars respond to adversity? And what will 2025's emerging talents learn from another Grand Slam? Will the player pressure on Grand Slams go from simmering to something more? These articles are all available in the New York Times in its completion from Saturday, January 17th sports section. And there is plenty of illustrations, and it discusses all of the Australian Open and players and their challenges. In the final sports story, as we are wrapping up our Saturday, this January 17th of 26 New York Times broadcast today, there is a story about the Broncos' Sean Payton, trying to win a Super Bowl with two different teams. That would be a first. A coach in the NFL winning a Super Bowl with two different teams. There is a huge article on Sean Payton and all of his challenges and what he's done with this Denver team in such a short time. The complete article is on page B9 of the New York Times sports section. Very interesting article on all the work he's put in with such a good team. May the Bills show up today and ruin that challenge. So today you have been listening to a recording of the New York Times for January 17th, 2026. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your reader has been Joe Gibbs. Have a great day and weekend. Thank you.